Good morning to those of you who are joining us from Spain. Good afternoon for those who are in Singapore, and welcome to this new edition of the Spain-Singapore Dialogues, organized by the Embassy of Spain and the official Spanish Chamber of Commerce in Singapore, in this case, with the support of Casa Asia, and the two institutions that will have this dialogue on livable cities. First of all, the City Council of Barcelona and the Center for Livable Cities in Singapore. My name is Javier Parrondo, Director of Casa Asia. And for those of you who are not familiar with this institution, Casa Asia is a public consortium created in 2001 to foster relations between the Asia-Pacific region and Spain. So it is my pleasure to host and moderate this dialogue between Laia Bonet, Deputy Mayor in the City Council of Barcelona, focus on Agenda 2030, digital transition, sports, and territorial and metropolitan coordination. She's also responsible of the international relations of Barcelona City Council. And secondly, Michael Coe, who is currently Executive Fellow with the Center for Liveable Cities and with a long trajectory of more than 25 years in the public sector. For example, he has served as CEO of the National Heritage Board and has been a member of the National Art Gallery in Singapore. But before giving the floor to our two panelists, thank you so much, Laia, Michael, for participating in this dialogue. I would like to thank the initiative that His Excellency Santiago Miralles, Ambassador of Spain in Singapore, had regarding these dialogues, along with the official Spanish Chamber of Commerce in Singapore, and for proposing to Casa Asia to host it. For us, it is a real pleasure. Since Ambassador Miralles will not be able to join us today, I would like to give the floor to Jose Maria Blasco, who is the Economic and Commercial Counselor. Thank you, Jose Maria, also for being with us today and for organizing this new series of the dialogues. You have the floor for some welcome remarks.
Thank you very much, Javier. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like again to apologize for the absence of Mr. Santiago Miralles, the Ambassador of Spain in Singapore, who is the one who really knows how to give this kind of opening words. He had to fly suddenly to Spain because of personal issues, but of course he will be involved in any follow-up of this dialogue. As Economic and Commercial Counselor of the Embassy of Spain in Singapore, I will do my best today. Today, this dialogue Spain-Singapore is the fifth of a series of dialogues organized by the Embassy of Spain and the Spanish Chamber of Commerce in Singapore since the beginning of the restrictions in mobility. The first four dialogues were about oil and gas, agri-food tech, sports, and fintech. And today we cannot be happier. With the co-organizers and collaborators today with us in this dialogue, Casa Asia, the Center for Livable Cities, Singapore, and Barcelona City Hall. Thank you very much. And I cannot agree more with the topic to be talked today in the dialogue. Smart and Livable Cities, a dialogue between Barcelona and Singapore. First, because cities are extraordinary assets for strengthening bilateral relations. Second, because becoming smart should be only a goal for a city, but a means to an end for contributing more livable cities in the world. And third, because the most relevant event in the world on smart cities is held every year in Barcelona, the Barcelona Smart City World Expo, with economic, commercial, technological, and social discussion elements. And in 2018, so now 2 years ago, Singapore was awarded as with the Smart City 2018 prize, or what is the same with the prize of being the best smart city in the world. So that's what is very important, this dialogue between Barcelona and Singapore, between Singapore and Barcelona. And last but not least, let me thank you once again, all the speakers today, Mrs. Bonet, Mr. Ko, Mr. Parondo. Thank you very much for your support, and also thank you very much for the support of your teams. I think we made a very good team all together, the Barcelona City Hall, the Center for Liveable Cities in Singapore, Casa Asia, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Embassy. I'm sure that the audience today is looking forward to know more about how two of the most well-known and smartest cities in the world, Barcelona and Singapore, Singapore and Barcelona, are also livable, fantastic livable cities on benefit of their owners, the citizens. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose Maria, for these kind words. This is indeed a very timely topic for us. We are living in a disrupted world, and we need to analyze what the role of cities can be in the economic recovery after COVID. I think Barcelona and Singapore are somehow sister cities. They have been aiming in the last few decades to reach the highest standards of living, to be livable cities in the full sense of the word. And in a way, they also share the same DNA. In times of uncertainty, it is very important to find what defines you as a livable city, your DNA. And we hope this activity will contribute in this effort. For those joining us, I would just go through the structure of this dialogue. After this short presentation, Laia Bonet will have the floor. Afterwards, it will be Mr. Michael Ko, who will take the floor with a PDF presentation. There will be a joint discussion, and the floor will be open for questions from the floor. So the chat is open from now, so that everyone can share in the chat their questions for both the speakers. Laia Bonet, if you are so kind to start this dialogue, you have the floor, and thank you once again for your participation in this activity of Casa Asia. Laia, cuando quieras, gracias.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation, and good morning from Barcelona. As I said, thank you, Javier, and thank you, Jose Luis, and the whole team of the embassy and the ambassador, and the team in Casa Asia and the Spanish embassy, as I say, in Singapore, for organizing this session, which is very important. We were just talking about this. It's time to strengthen the ties between Barcelona and Singapore, and this dialogue can help, I think, in this way. And thank you, Michael Ko, and all our friends in Singapore for accepting to take part in it. For us, this is an exciting opportunity to strengthen, as I said, our bonds with a city that we feel so close to our heart. I would like to recall that back in 2010, the then Mayor Jordi Hereu awarded the City Council's highest recognition, the Honor Medal, to Singapore's founding father, the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. At the same time, there is an evident geographic and, in some aspects, cultural distance between Barcelona and Singapore. I do hope that this seminar will only mark the start of a renewed and productive relation between both of our cities. My presentation will be rather brief. I will introduce the city and the policy priorities of the current government, and then jump directly to our vision about how to combine the smart and the livable aspects of the city. Barcelona is the second city in Spain and the fifth largest metropolitan area in the European Union. It has a population of 3.2 million inhabitants, which makes it a large city in Europe, but a somewhat small one on the global stage. As you may know, Spain is organized around 3 levels of governments: the national, the regional, and the local level. And Barcelona has a city council directly elected, which in turn elects the mayor and the city government that I represent here today. We as a city are an autonomous level of government and have the main responsibilities over urban planning, housing, social services, mobility, infrastructure, and economic development, among others. Over the years, we have also developed policy action on areas that concern us, such as international relations or digitalization. Indeed, digital has become an increasingly relevant policy for the City Council. Barcelona is now considered as a leading smart city in the world, it has been mentioned. And in this capacity, we host global scale events such as the Mobile World Congress and the Smart City Expo World Congress. But in fact, we are advancing towards a digital city based on technological humanism. This means moving from a model in which technology is used for the sake of becoming smart towards a model in which people are placed at the center of digital policies. And this involves deploying technologies that support urban governance and management, but at the same time, promoting a rights-based approach to digitalization. First, guaranteeing fundamental rights and freedoms, such as the right to privacy, participation, and transparency. Second, democratically regulating emerging technologies, such as artificial intelligence and 5G, so as to ensure that they do not reinforce existing social and territorial inequalities. And third, a people-centered digital city also means incorporating the digital dimension into social rights, such as education, social care, accessibility, or housing, and therefore digitalizing the provision of public services. In recent years, Barcelona has taken clear steps in the direction of placing smart technologies at the service of a more livable city. For instance, we set up a network of 15,000 urban scintilla sensors to support the city administration by generating real-time data on mobility, waste management, air quality, and energy consumption. A second citizen participation, a digital citizen participation platform named Decidim was launched with open source. And today it is used in more than 100 cities in 20 different countries. We set up an open innovation platform involving research centers, public administration, private sector, and social organizations. We fostered also a network of public fab labs as municipal facilities with digital fabrication tools that facilitate digital innovation led by citizen initiatives. And in view of the digital divide exposed by the pandemic and lockdown, we are implementing an emergency plan for digital inclusion, which aims precisely to diagnose the digital divide, enhancing connectivity, and finally, digital skills building. And we are also preparing municipal regulations on the use of artificial intelligence in municipal services. And even though we can do a lot as a city government, we are also well aware that we cannot do everything we would like to do, because we do not have legal powers over digital infrastructure, broader regulation on digitalization, and so on. This is why Barcelona is leading, along with New York City and Amsterdam, the city's coalition for digital rights. This is a platform for advocacy, awareness raising, and technical exchange for cities to bring initiatives for a human-centered digitalization to the international stage and to try to influence global agendas and regulations. It has over 50 member cities from Europe and across the world, and counts on the partnership of UN Habitat and the Office of UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. So I hope this has provided a clear view on what is Barcelona doing to foster a digital city with its inhabitants at the center. And I am sure I will be able to develop some of the issues I just presented in our next discussion after the participation of Michael Koch. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Laia. Michael, thank you for joining us from Singapore, Center for Liveable Cities. You have the floor.
Right. Thank you very much, Laia and Javier, Jose Maria, and Laura for organizing this webinar and this exchange of dialogue. In Singapore, we've been long admirers of Barcelona and all your achievements. It's a beautiful city and all founded also on smart city initiatives. So for today, let me just talk about some ideas from Singapore to share how we are approaching livable and smart city planning. Next. Next, please, Vicky. Well, Singapore has got 5.6 million people. We're a very dense city with 7,800 persons per kilometer squared. And we are also a nation. So we have to fit the essential needs of a nation within our land area. And of course, we have limited natural resources. Next, please. This is what we believe guides our city framework, and we call it the Singapore Livability Framework. We all want to achieve a high quality of life, have a competitive economy, and a sustainable environment. But these are outcomes all of us want as city leaders. But really, what is guiding all this is the urban systems and foundations of integrated and visionary master planning and coordinated development, and of course, dynamic urban governance. Next. We look at the Singapore Livability Matrix, and we plot what we call livability ranking based on Mercer's Quality of Living Survey. Not exhaustive list of cities here, of course, and we plot it against density. So what interests us a lot is how high density cities can also achieve high livability. Next. And looking at those key outcomes, we have, of course, our urban systems of transport, waste, industry, greenery, water, housing, etc. And all these have to be founded on technology as an enabler to enhance the livability and sustainability of the people's lives. Next. As I mentioned, thinking long-term is a very important issue for us, and we are guided by our strategic thinking process whereby we get together across multi-agencies and ministries to formulate what we call the concept plan, a strategic plan that is renewed every 10 years that guides the development of Singapore into the future. So you can see an illustration of the strategic plan that we have on the right. And this actually formulates our master plan, which is a detailed land use plan that is fully transparent with a plot ratio, building height for everyone to see. Next. And this is also the polycentric planning is part of this integrated master planning approach. We decentralize our commercial centers to where the people live outside of the CBD, but we are now also creating districts that are smart and able cellular districts for the convenience of our people. And right on the building right now is the Punggol Digital District in the Northeast. This is an innovation and creative corridor that is merged together with a new university and set in a new housing estate in the area. Next. Now, planning of such the concept plan, master plan, and polycentricity, etc., is all guided in a data-informed way through geospatial techniques. And these are the various plans that we have. It's not exhaustive, of course, looking at how parks are buffered with surrounding greenery, looking at the types of housing across Singapore, heat maps, etc. And this is all through what the Urban Redevelopment Authority has as the e-planner geospatial portal. Next. And complementing planning, you can see the green and blue plan of Singapore, whereby we actually dam all our rivers to keep all the water within our boundaries. You can see how we actually make parks accessible to people. And these are also floodplains. The Bishan Ang Mo Kio Park, for example, used to be a concrete drainage canal. And using technology like smart sensors and warning systems that will warn people once a heavy deluge of rain comes and the plain will be flooded, so people can get out of the way and go to safety. And looking at technology as well, we also integrate our developments with the MRT with bus terminal, incorporating what we call almost like a 5-minute city, because it's all vertical, accessible, with community facilities, commercial facilities, transportation, and residential above. Next. And looking at all this in terms of what we have, in terms of commercial facilities, in terms of greenery, we complement it with apps like this called Space Out app, which actually tells you the number of people in shopping centers, so you can make an informed decision whether you want to go to the shopping center or not. And also safe distance at parks, because that also allows us to use drone technology to actually analyze the number of people in the park and whether it's again crowded, and you can make an informed choice of whether you want to visit the park or not. Next. In terms of road pricing and road congestions, we control it through our electronic road pricing system, and we are now moving to a satellite-based technology that will actually have a connection to the in-vehicle unit and automatically deduct from the cash card in the vehicle the congestion pricing at that point in time. The parking at SG app allows us to look at public parking lots and straight away program it, say where you are, and straight away begin deducting the parking price. Then we move on, of course, to the public transport system. My Transport SG app allows us to actually update seat availability right across bus and train timings across Singapore. Next. And looking at planning again, town planning, we have virtual twins that allow us to study the wind flow analysis, solar radiance, noise analysis, and also manage the housing estates. We are looking at smart planning, smart environment, smart estates, smart living, and smart community within our Housing and Development Board new towns, and in integrated fashion and what they call in the smart hub data banks, and moving, of course, towards smarter living with intelligent homes as well. Next. And this is an example of how the Smart Hub actually looks after a neighborhood through lift monitoring, smart irrigation of the plants, solar PV monitoring, smart lighting, etc. And looking at the new model of neighborhood centers that you can see in our public housing estates is the Oasis Terrace on the right. But even this also has smart systems of motion lighting, sensor-activated fans, and of course, solar control as well. Next. Looking at the digital workplace, we have all of us in public service, for example, have a collaborative working environment, and we also check in regularly twice a day on temperature checks and whether we have been exposed to any pandemic patients, etc. And looking at SARS, our previous experience with SARS, it has enabled us also to move forward with home-based learning and looking at aspects of the cultural software, such as virtual arts programs as well, and even borrowing of National Library books through the e-portals and having a lot more e-book collections in the collection of the National Library as well. Next. Of course, we are adapting to the new urban logistics where the restaurants are closed and people are ordering food through the various logistics providers. And we know that we'll have to replan to cater for the evolving urban logistics industry. It is not efficient, and we have to look forward and expand this in a systematic approach. E-payments for food courts, hawker centers, and digital payments are becoming increasingly common. And we recently had the Great Singapore Sale as a virtual and augmented reality sale as well. Next. But here we are working with industries and working with community, as Deputy Mayor has said, is extremely important, because it is only through community contribution that we are able to implement the Trace Together app for contact tracing, the Safe Entry app, whereby you enter a shopping center or enter a shop, you will straight away log into the Safe Entry app. So this enables contact tracing across Singapore. The One Service app is a municipal app that allows citizens to report, say, failures in lighting, or say maybe something wrong with the lift, etc. So they can come onto the One Service app to report it, and this will be distributed across the agencies to take relevant action. But what is heartwarming is that even in pandemic times, we are able to actually do community participation. So the example on the right is something that we at the Center for Liveable Cities have actually engaged residents in planning for the future community and garnering ideas and hopes that they have as a community. Next. Now, just in quick summary, what we have here on the table is we believe in long-term planning and visioning, implementing polycentric centers, and integrated planning and development. But all this is really anchored upon technology as an enabler and a whole of government approach through interagency collaboration, working with industry to upgrade and to produce the new smart technologies, and always being people-centric and involving the community and getting them to buy in as well. Next. And this is, just to close, it's the Singapore I grew up with as a child. And I'd like to fast forward to Singapore of today. The next slide. So the Singapore of today, Marina Bay, it's a freshwater reservoir, the only downtown reservoir in the world. And this is controlled, again, by smart technology because it's a freshwater reservoir, but just separated by the Marina Barrage or a dam system from the seawater that is right next to it. So looking at it and seeing how this beautiful water body can not only provide our infrastructure needs of drinking water, but also be a place of enjoyment and appreciation for the people walking around the bay, and being a place for the people to gather for major events and celebrations like New Year's Eve. And we would like to warmly invite everyone in Barcelona to come and visit Singapore very soon, once we are all able to travel again. And please look at the next slide, whereby we also provide all our studies online, available for free for everyone at clc.gov.sg. And we'd like to invite all Mayor of Barcelona, Deputy Mayor of Barcelona, and all of you city leaders to the World City Summit in 2021, June, in Singapore. Now, thank you very much, and we hope to stay in touch with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for this comprehensive presentation. I think both Laia Bonet and Michael Ko have laid the foundations for a fruitful debate on the basis of a few questions that I would like to put on the table. First, Michael, if we come back to your presentation, you mentioned the Singapore Livability Framework. I think it was the second or third slide. Which of these of the components of this framework you suggest other cities to adopt in their journey towards becoming a smart city? Because I think this is a good starting point.
Yes, thank you for that question. As I mentioned, we all want good things for our people: a high quality of life, a sustainable environment, and a competitive economy. But for us in Singapore, this is founded on long-term planning and will to implement it across agencies in an integrated manner. But in doing so, more and more so, all this is supported by smart technologies, because we all must come together across agencies to input and to give our findings. Added to that, before we even go out with plans, we also have to involve the community. So the community participation is an extremely important foundation of anchoring the plans in the hearts and minds of people. So together, we are all aware of what is available in the future. And of course, there are many means for the people to communicate. As I mentioned, I showed one example of how people participated in a Zoom meeting. And the heartwarming aspect of this was there were ambassadors who actually trained the seniors to come on board. And this is a very important part as we also build an inclusive city, and one that has an open, smart framework to involve all members of society.
Thank you, Michael. Laia, I come back to you. COVID-19 is becoming a real challenge for all of us. What do you think digital technologies role could be? What can digital technologies do to help public managers like you to respond to this pandemic?
I think digital technologies are a key part of solutions during the crisis. They have allowed us to continue to offer essential public services, but also ensuring an avenue for many businesses to continue operations and keeping people in touch while following COVID-19 related public health measures. Indeed, digital technologies have allowed us first and foremost to ensure the continuity of the Barcelona municipal government and its public services. We effectively transitioned to a digital work environment in just 2 weeks, probably the same everywhere. But this process would have taken us months and many pilot projects in different circumstances. For instance, we have dramatically increased available remote accesses to the online work environment and have provided municipal workers with laptops to do remote work. Second, digital tools have also allowed us to provide a more social and community-based response to the crisis. A clear example of this is how digital 3D printing municipal facilities started producing personal protective equipment in close cooperation with the city's maker community, only a few days after the state of emergency was declared. Over 24,000 materials were produced from March to June to protect vulnerable groups and those who were on the front line of the emergency. Another of technologies that has humanized our response to the pandemic is a program called Vincles. Vincles means linkages in Catalan, and we are using this program precisely to tackle loneliness among our senior citizens. They get to manage social relationships and have access to social and emotional assistance services through a tablet or a smartphone app. And they get training and accompaniment to use it. So this further helps us to tackle the digital divide. So digital is crucial in addressing the pandemic, but also forces us to rethink our model of digitalization. Our first challenge is the digitalization of public services, and also includes emergent technologies in an ethical way, so as to ensure that public service delivery is up to the challenges of the digital society, and also makes sure that citizens' rights, health, education, and so on are ensured in this process. And second, digital inclusion must be ensured if we want digitalization to work for everyone. Otherwise, we will only be adding a new layer of inequalities to our societies.
Thank you, Laia. Maybe, Michael, you want to add something on this? What Singapore's response to COVID-19 has been so far? Whether you think you have succeeded in stopping the spread of the virus?
Right. Thank you. So as Deputy Mayor said, like many societies around the world, we had to act fast, and many of us had to work from home, etc. But the good thing about it is that agencies, submissions, etc., are all online. So things can go on, submissions can go on, inquiries and can go on, etc. But also critically now, it's to us, contact tracing is very important in this pandemic period. Now, how do you contact trace? It used to be that we had to do this manually, but now with the help of apps on our phone, we are able to trace together straight away if anyone has come into contact with, say, a COVID patient. We are able to reach out straight away through that technology. Now, for those who don't have a smartphone or prefer not to a smartphone, the government has just issued trace together tokens, which are electronic devices, which are not smartphone reliant, but these also are able to be used easily by the seniors, for example, to check in the moment say they enter a shopping center or crowded area, and this will facilitate also this contact tracing. The Safe Entry app is another key aspect for contact tracing. And all these are technologies that have come up along the way to keep us safer and to allow us to control the spread and contact people so that we are able to maybe quarantine them or help them stay at home in their own facility so that they don't go out there. So these are aspects that we have learned and applied. And of course, home-based learning is a very important aspect, especially when our school children, our university students had to stay at home. And our home-based learning systems were in place. Fortunately, because of the previous SARS experience, we had already, for schools, implemented home-based learning as a regular aspect in their ongoing curriculum. So the kids seamlessly transited to home-based learning without any big change, because they're already all used to it. But what the issue there was, some of the kids from poorer family may not have access to laptops. So this is where I think community organizations and government agencies stepped up to provide laptops for some of these less well-off families, to also facilitate these kids to home-based learning access.
Thank you, Michael. You both mentioned these contact tracking applications. This is something that we are normalizing, but there are some ethical considerations around. I don't know if you, Laia, could elaborate a bit more of what are these moral implications of the use of these kind of applications.
Yes, of course. So with contact tracing apps, our concern is the same as with the rest of digital technologies, which is to use a human rights-based approach to place people at the heart of how these technologies are developed and used. So as we saw how national governments and tech companies across the world started to advocate for digital apps that trace contacts among potentially COVID-positive people, we were concerned about a number of things. First, we said that contact tracing apps could not replace epidemiological measures related to public health. They needed to be seen as a supplementary to a comprehensive approach that included large-scale testing, social distancing, manual contact tracing, vaccine development, and so on. Second, we were concerned about the need to respect the privacy of citizens, and therefore we called on anonymity, transparency, and control regarding both the medium used and data collected to be ensured. And third, we were concerned about the impact of the digital divide on the inequality effects of this app. In Barcelona, for instance, access to smartphones is very high on average, but there is a segment of our elderly, especially those who live in low-income neighborhoods, that do not have one. And we all needed to be mindful of this. This is why back in May, with the Cities Coalition of Digital Rights, we issued a set of recommendations to guide governments and big techs on the development and application of contact tracing apps. These recommendations called for digital technologies related to COVID to be integrated with 10 specific principles. For example, the principle of privacy by design, the principle of openness and transparency, and the principle of fairness and inclusion. I think our concerns are probably the same as the concerns that many other cities or many other governments had. But the best way to tackle this problematic and these worries probably is working together in a network. And this is what we tried through this Cities Coalition of Digital Rights.
And Javier, so could I add on to that? I think the personal privacy is definitely foremost on everyone's minds. And certainly apps would have to cater for that. But this is why we've now introduced the token, because the token is not smartphone linked, etc. So it has no access to other data, etc. And it also solves the issue of the digital divide, because if you carry the token, you don't actually have to use your phone, etc. And really helps, for example, the seniors who may not be able to use smartphone technology as well as some of us. So the idea of the token has come about, and we are now issuing free tokens to everyone in the population to facilitate this issue of contact tracing and also protection of personal privacy data. So it's still a means of adapting technology, but also facilitating and thinking of new ways around it. But key, of course, as Deputy Mayor has always said, it's always the community. You have to use it. You have to want to bring the token. You have to want to beep in, because if you don't, then it will be all the more difficult for the rest of us.
We are starting to receive questions from the audience. So the first one is to Mr. Ko. I have a question for you, Mr. Ko. I know firsthand that Singapore is a leader in the adoption of technology for public services, but I have always been surprised by the slow adoption of electric vehicles. I heard Singapore is planning to phase out combustion vehicles by 2030. Maybe could you share with us your vision on this?
I think that's a good point. And we are moving towards new technology for electric vehicles. In fact, within, I believe the announcement was within the next 10 years, they will be phasing out the normal combustion engines in favor of electric vehicles. Already on what we have in experiment is the Singapore Blue Car, which is actually a community car that is a fully electric vehicle, whereby members of the community can actually book a time and use this vehicle and then park it back in the parking lot or another parking lot around the city to actually then recharge. And the charge is by hour. And this is going to be a shared community facility and something that also complements the public transport system. Because then you also have a personal device, the electrical car device at your hand, if you say need to transport heavy supermarketing, etc. So we are moving towards electric vehicles. And I think learning from many other cities, trying to also electrify our buses, our public transport system. And already we have actually a heavy reliance on MRT, mass rapid transport system, which is essentially electric systems around the city. And most people use this system, and we are trying to push more and more people from cars to public transport to of course, reduce carbon emissions from cars, etc. And at the moment, we are about 62% public-private, and we're moving towards 70% in future, trying to tilt that balance to public transport. And the good news is that the new generation and even my children tell me, what's the point of even getting a driving license? We can rely on public transport, and we have so many other private transport suppliers. Like, for example, we have Grab, the equivalent of Uber in Singapore, etc. And they're so convenient. But what is more critical is moving also to other forms of active mobility. And this is where we really admire cities like Barcelona to encourage more walking in the city and also other new active mobility devices, especially cycling. So this is where we also can learn from other cities in terms of improving our cycle network. Yes, we have made a start, and we are moving towards more cycle pathways and making it even safer for cyclists to move around. So it's an integrated systems approach. There's technology, there's moving to electric vehicles, but it's also catering towards everyone in terms of cycling and walking as well. So in all, an urban systems approach.
Let's move, if you agree, to something that was mentioned in your presentations, which is how to ensure digital inclusion. Maybe I will move to Laia. What are the policies being implemented right now by the Barcelona City Council on these specific topics? One of the people who are following us, Eduardo, is asking on this if you think that there is a risk of discontinuation once there is a change in the city, regional, or state government in these policies. So you want to, we are talking about the importance of long-term planning. Is this really possible when there is changes in these three layers of government? Laia, cuando quieras.
Indeed, digital inclusion is very, very, very important. And as Michael mentioned, during lockdown, we have witnessed how access to internet and the skills to use digital services determine who can benefit from the digital transition and who cannot. The digital divide has been exposed as a driver of social inequalities. And a survey during lockdown among vulnerable families in the city found that 25% did not have a home-based Wi-Fi connection and 6% did not have access to internet whatsoever. And obviously, social workers reported generalized difficulties with online administrative procedures, support to educational activities, job search, or access to video conferencing platforms. So digital inclusion has made it to the heart of the city's agenda for the recovery, which involved an emergency plan for digital inclusion that is currently being implemented. And this plan addresses three needs: diagnosing the digital divide, enhancing connectivity, and digital skills building. Diagnosis. The diagnosis is very, very important because it shows how deep the divide is. We need to update the last data we had, which are from 2016, with the city-wide report that clearly shows the state of the city's digital divide and where action is most needed. And we will have this data, this updating in a few weeks. Second, the access to digital connection, tools and facilities, which includes on the one hand, strengthening the municipal Fab Labs network and offering them as a territorially rooted municipal facilities for public access to digital technologies, including internet. And on the other hand, the plan also increases available digital devices of the local economic development agency for its users to be able to follow courses remotely in the event of a second lockdown. And if we talk about skills building, we need to strengthen this policy through targeted programs in low-income neighborhoods and in the city council's offices to train low-skill audiences to successfully do online municipal procedures and use basic digital platforms that have proved most useful during lockdown, setting up a video conference call, video calls through smartphones and tablets, or even sending emails. Plus, we are working with NGOs in low-income neighborhoods where they are already developing digital inclusion and capacity building programs. And finally, I would mention that the digital divide has been exposed as a driver of social inequalities. And addressing it and promoting digital inclusion is a main challenge to foster cohesive societies and protect rights in the post-COVID era. And this is what we in Barcelona are trying to do. But obviously, as the question as you mentioned, Javier, and the question underlined, this is something that we all, the national government, the regional government, and the city council, the city government needs to do all together. The magnitude, the dimension of this digital divide is probably so deep, so important that only with coordination between all the levels of government, we could or we can try to tackle with enough resources and policies, strong policies to tackle this problem.
Effectively. Yes.
And can I just add to what Deputy Mayor is saying? Fully agree. And cooperation between agencies and ministries across the board to respond in an integrated manner is very important. So in Singapore, we're fortunate that many of in fact, 82% of our population lives in public housing estates or affordable housing estates that cater from the lower income to the middle income. And many of these blocks, if not all the blocks, are actually wired for broadband services, etc. And we have provided free Wi-Fi access, like through Wireless SG across Singapore, for people to plug in. But yes, the digital divide is there for the seniors and for some of the lower income. And as I mentioned, we have some of these programs in place to help children to actually get their first PC or their laptop. And this is fully funded for the first one by the Ministry of Education's financial assistance scheme. And for those with larger families with more children, they're also entitled to a subsidized second laptop. But I think the heartwarming thing is that we have to arm our people to be able to train. And we have to have the ambassadors, for example, senior ambassadors, training other seniors and helping them along, whether it's through how to use the silver Infocom hotspots, etc. But I'm also a member of the National Library Board. And what is heartwarming is when we remove physical newspapers from the library and move to e-newspapers. So we train a few of the seniors, and they in turn train and help other seniors to cross over and appreciate e-newspapers very easily. So it's a matter of arming the community to help each other. And that community participation is absolutely crucial and the fundamental foundation of a smart city.
Thank you, Michael. There are many questions, and we only have 3 minutes left. Allow me to echo what Joan wants to share with Michael and Laia. He asked, Mr. Ko mentioned the 3Ps approach: public, private, and people. How do you really include the people? Interacting directly with the citizens or using the different associations, professional? Michael.
Okay, interesting question. Thank you for that question. There are many different ways of community participation. For example, when we have a neighborhood that is being upgraded, the public housing division, the housing development board would actually put up the plans and explain it to the people of the neighborhood. And they would be able to have a better idea of what could be possible, because there's a co-payment, of course, for the upgrading. And they eventually have to vote for the upgrading that they want, be it the color of the block or additional playground facilities, etc. So in that way, the people and community are involved in upgrading their own neighborhoods. It is in their hands. Participation is also available, as I mentioned earlier, in the Municipal Services app. And this is very important because we can't have people on the spot everywhere to look at, say, a system failure, a light failure, a lift failure. And this is where active citizenry can help. Through that app, you just log on, you report something, and the agencies are notified, and they can then go and fix the problem. So again, it's a grounds-up approach of participation by the public. And more so, I think the public wants to be involved. And even in the planning, for example, of the new rail corridor, a former rail corridor that is going to become an open space spine that links north and south of Singapore, the public actually came up with the ideas of what they would like to see. And I'm happy to report that the first 4 kilometers is going to be implemented this year into next. So based on what the public had inputted into the design and what they wanted out of that corridor. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes. Would you like to add something on this, how to involve people in the implementation of these smart technologies?
Yes, very, very, very briefly. We are using 2 ways, a two-folded approach. Direct participation with co-creation initiatives such as the public Fab Labs that I mentioned, and community-based association and social organization organizations that know people's needs directly, and they know these needs directly in their communities, and also professional sectors. This is what we have done with the Barcelona deal.
Good. Let me ask you a final question, because I think it's an interesting one from Adrian, because sometimes people want concrete results. They want to see how their voices are heard by, in this case, the city councils. So Adrian is asking, can the projects carried out be followed in real time? Can citizens monitor progress or see if a project does not have the expected results and demand other types of measures? And this would be the last question from the floor. Up to Laia or Michael to briefly respond. Is there any way for citizens to monitor in real time the progress of specific initiatives carried out by the city council?
So in Barcelona, there is a rather ex-post assessment of policies, and not all policies produce results as they are being implemented. But we are implementing more and more direct mechanisms so that the citizens can follow the results of the projects implemented by the city council. And also, and this is also, I think, important from this perspective, we are working more and more together with the citizens, so that being there during the implementation of a project, it's also a way to control the implementation, the way and the results the projects produce.
I think a very interesting question, and very interested in what Deputy Mayor has said. I'll just cite one Singapore example, because we had an older town center that was being rejuvenated under what we call our Remaking of Heartlands project. And that real-time consultation was done, because even as the people were consulted on what they would be seeing upcoming and what they could contribute and what new ideas they had in terms of the pedestrian mall, tree planting, etc. But in real time, they're also being kept informed of what was happening in the pilot areas and how that could be expanded and improved for the other areas as well. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's information that's available to the public that is critical. And whether it's a good old-fashioned way of putting a few pictures out there and right there where the project is, or whether it's online on, say, the HDB, the Housing Development Portal to inform people, both complement each other. But it's really how you get the information out there. And this example shows that hard and virtual aspects can combine, and people can react and respond together.
Thank you so much, Michael. I think it's, almost 4 minutes past 11. I would like to finish this dialogue here. Thank you very much, Laia. Always a pleasure to meet you virtually, but I hope to meet you in person soon. Michael, a pleasure. I don't know if you want to say some final words from on behalf of the Center of Liveable Cities and on behalf of the City Council of Barcelona. You have this opportunity. If not, I will conclude.
Yes.
Laia?
Just to say what I said at the beginning, it's a real pleasure, and it's also because it's not usual to have these sort of dialogues, and I think it's very useful for our cities, for both of our cities, to share these experiences, these approaches, and. In the end, we can see that we are working probably more in the same way as we could think, and this is good news, and the first step to strengthen the ties, the bonds between both cities.
Thank you for your kind words. Absolutely. We are mutual admirers of each other's cities. And it's a very good start. And we hope that we can continue sharing experiences and continue the dialogue. But maybe a few words to also close in the sense of Singapore's approach, that we always take a long-term and integrated approach. And we've been fortunate to be able to implement the plan that we first started with in 1971 with tweaks and, of course, technological advances and integrated approach of talking across agencies, which is very important, and the sharing of data, I think, with across agencies is extremely important, and not working in silos, because we know that there are people in some cities that have agencies that work in silos, and these silos must be broken down, because without working together and sharing information, we are not able to do that whole picture. And of course, using technology as an enabler to put the information out there, to cooperate, to integrate, of course, not forgetting also the good old-fashioned ways of sometimes having that picture next to the project and informing the people out there as well. So technology being an enabler, and community participation, always the important foundation, involving the people. And this is where, Deputy Mayor, we definitely share that vision of involving our people in the future of our cities. And may I wish all of you out there and people of Barcelona a very good day, and stay well, stay safe, and we hope to see you all one day very soon. We will get through this together.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you so much, Laia. I'm glad from Casa Asia we have contributed to this love story between Barcelona and Singapore. This is a good way for us to share best practices. I hope this dialogue has been fruitful for Barcelona and Singapore and interesting for our followers. This dialogue, apart from those who are following us now online, will be available in a few days in our channel on YouTube. We have taken advantage of new technologies always for our activities, and this effort has been somehow rewarded because we have increased the number of our followers, and now people from all over the world can follow our activities. So thank you so much again for the Embassy of Spain, the official Spanish Chamber of Commerce for this initiative, and to our two speakers for their time today. It was great hosting this dialogue. Have a good day and stay safe. Bye-bye.